everyone, and welcome to Episode 11 of Breach of Etiquette, your Legend of the Five Rings podcast. My name is Manji, and with me today are, as always, Peter Mindertsma. Joining us new today are Benito Hippolito and David Clifford. Guy, would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hi, I'm Benito. I play L5R with Manji and Heroes of Rokugan. A couple other things as well. About all.
I am an enthusiastic player and designer of RPGs, and I played the L5R card game for the better part of an arc. I'm very fond of the game in general. At one point, I owned all of the Way of and Secrets of books on PDF. Those sunk with a hard drive, much to my great regret, and I'm looking to replace those. I'm also very familiar with the works of the original credited designer of the game L5R, John Wick, and so feel I have some well-informed opinions on that. I played Heroes of Rokugan for a good long while as the Austin group took off, and hope to, in the near future, start joining those games again. I think that about sums it up.
All right.
His intro is a lot more impressive than yours, Neo.
Yeah, that's fine.
So today we've had a lot of requests to do another episode on the Legend of the Five Rings role-playing game. For you guys who've been sticking with us for a little while now, you know that we did an episode earlier that largely centered on Heroes of Rokugan, the sort of living campaign for Legend of the Five Rings. But today we wanted to kind of sort of bust the game down to the more general RPG as it is. So have you guys played in home campaigns before? And if so, what have you done?
Well, let's see. You've done a couple home campaigns. Yours, one with some other people. I like Scorpion. I know a lot of people tend to stick with the clan and just run with it. I've played a couple others, but mainly I do enjoy the Scorpion. Kind of the carte blanche to be about as devious as you can without being a complete ass is always fun. Despite the fact that, everyone expects the Spanish Inquisition, but nobody quite expects it the way you really can if you try.
Fair enough, Dave.
I've been in a total of 4 home campaigns besides Heroes of Rokugan. And something of an iconoclast, I always like to vary things up, so I've been a different clan in each game. The very first game was a Matsu, mainly because of the time that game was ramping up. I was reading Way of the Lion and getting really into, hot-headed, honor, doing things correctly and justice. So I played a Matsu, a crab, a monkey in a game based on where the story arc is now in the colonies, and most recently a Ronin and a Battle Maiden.
Peter, have you done any home campaigns?
I've done a few. I've run one for a little while.
That's right. Your first experience with L5R was the LARP rules, wasn't it?
Yes. That was an interesting introduction. We eventually went to just the tabletop rules. We were doing 3.5 rules at the time when we did that. Let's see.
I don't think Oriole Adventures counts.
Not D&D 3.5.
Details. All right, go on.
You're a dick. Anyway, but yeah, so my first real, experience, which I think we entailed last time we talked about RPGs in detail, was with the LARP game, and then we just switched to tabletop rules, but still did it as a LARP. And that was really fun. We had about 20 people playing it all at once at any given game. So it was nice, a lot of nice interaction and everything like that between all the players. Through my LARP career with L5R, I played Scorpion, I played Phoenix, and I played a dragon.
Cool. I've been playing. My first experience with Legend of the Five Rings was actually the role-playing game, the 3rd edition. It might have been 3.5. I'm not actually really sure, like, which rule set we were on.
It was just regular 3. I came across 3.5 later, and we'd already been far enough in the campaign that we didn't want to.
And I was playing a Togashi tattooed man. The next that campaign went on. Eventually, he kind of died. Weird things happen when you play Togashi, and I followed that up by playing a Yoritomo Bushi in Heroes of Rokugan for the past. Let's see, I started that character in 2010, so about 4 years. I've been playing Yoritomo Mifune, who just recently got his pirate certification, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, you're officially a pirate?
I get to gain Koku and or Mantis favors at the expense of quite a lot of honor.
Because you're really so worried about that.
I kind of am, actually. It's sort of a problem. But mostly what I do is I run home campaigns. Benito mentioned that he played in one of mine. I've been doing at least one session a week of Legend of the Five Rings 4th edition since the week after the 4th edition book came out at Gencon. So that's something like probably about 250 sessions, not counting Heroes of Rokugan.
Yeah, it's been a few.
So
that's quite a bit.
And I've recently been doing, we have kind of an campaign going on now where I have the core rules for every edition of the role-playing game, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And so the campaign starts with the players making characters in 1st edition, transitioning those characters into 2nd edition. Then you're playing the children of those original characters in Gold edition, and then in 3rd edition, and then the children of those characters in 4th edition. So
2nd edition is so dumb.
2nd edition is interesting,
but is it dumb in a great way? That's
it's considerably more coherent than 1st. I'll give it that.
I really don't have an answer to your question, no, Benito. It's
So Benito, to give you an idea of what is making Peter very sad, in 2nd edition, it's not, it is roll and keep, but you roll your skill and keep your trait.
Only.
You don't pool it. So if you have like a 5 agility and a kenjutsu of 3, you're rolling 3 keep 3.
All right, that could make things moderately difficult.
Spells, you're rolling element, keep rank.
Details.
We just got through character creation on the 2nd edition part of the campaign, and things have gotten pretty interesting. Some Thunders died.
Some players died. Quite a few players died.
4? It's been the most lethal of the campaigns I've run by far.
Let's see. My first one died. Your first one died.
Well, there was the Great Wipe.
Right.
That you were directly responsible for.
Look, you can't make a great campaign without murdering a few PCs and making the players cry.
Weirdly, in that game, I think one of my favorite things about that game is the recoup.
Only half the party died.
So when my character died, I went ahead and played the nemesis that I had on my character's character sheet. We had well established that my character had a nemesis, a sworn enemy, and she'd appeared earlier as a GM NPC, and we all agreed that it would be pretty amusing, and she would have reason to track down the party. And so I went ahead and played statted out and gen my character's nemesis and played it within a sort of approximation of how Manji the GM introduced her as a character. Like I basically sort of broke down the character traits that observed into stats, into advantages and disadvantages, and this pretty much sums it up.
And it was a lot of fun.
It was. It was indeed. Yeah. My character didn't exactly die, but he was no longer playable.
He stayed alive until like the second to last session.
And then we saw him again later on. Not a PC.
Let's just say Tadaka no Oni was involved. A very Scorpion decision was made. Turned out to be the wrong decision, but what are you going to do? Best available information. So moving on to the next topic. Where were we?
So we've got all of us have a rather a decent amount of experience with the role playing game, and a lot of people have posted in response to a thread that I made on the L5R Facebook group. Let me go and get those names real quick so I make sure that I butcher everyone's names because
that's what Manji does.
It is how I do. So I'd like to thank Derek Cochran, Casey Smith, Kane Salzer, Alexander Porter, Henry Eshelman, Jeffrey Elliott, and Chris Hand for responding to my questions. You guys are all wonderful people, and I appreciate your feedback. A lot of these turned out to be questions that are more related to the setting. So what I'm going to do there, the next time we can get Fred 1, I'm going to actually go ahead and ask the guy who's in charge of the setting to help get some of these points clarified. But there are a lot of great questions here for the role-playing game. And one thing that I wanted to start off with, because all of us have experience with this, is how do you make a campaign when you have characters that are all samurai of different clans? Besides using Emerald Magistrates, because that's sort of the easy way out.
Well, as far as doing that, I think HOR does a good job on doing that with all of their module adventures, basically saying that, your lord owes another lord a favor, and he's sending you to do it. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably one of the most practical and ingenious ways that I've seen it done so far. Other ways that I've done it, all of the players are starting in, the Imperial City of whatever it is at the time, Tosanuchi or Toshirambo, and they just happen to meet up and stuff goes down.
Well, the L5R version of a tavern, Otosanuchi, I understand.
There's a little bit of a problem with the tavern approach because all of your samurai have expected duties, and then you have to do some extra backbending to explain why in the world all of these samurai have time for this. Any good honorable samurai, here's the weird thing about honor. That's an important thing, and someone should, in all good conscience, do something about it. But I'm on my lord's clock, and I really do have to go. So there's tension there. So there are some other interesting ways. One of them being that there's more than one institution besides the Emerald Magistrates that's cross-clan. Like, for example, the legions, the Emerald Legions. And so there have been a lot of really good campaigns centering around the Emerald Legions have to do things like the Emperor or the Imperial Court or in Port and Sepun have things that the Legions need doing. They don't sit on their hands in the capital a lot. Illegal wars sometimes start cropping up. The Crane and Crab are infamous for unplanned and unallowed border skirmishes, and so various things need fires need stamping out.
Baseless accusations.
One of the ways that
I just want to say real quick, I think the Legion is a really good thing for a sort of a newer or more sort of D&D-esque kind of group of players. People who are used to kicking in the door on a dungeon, killing everything inside of it, and taking all the loot. The Legion can help sort of accommodate that style of play but you can still do it in a very, you have a chain of command, you have responsibilities, you're still a samurai, and everything you do reflects on your clan and your family. So there's still a lot of very interesting stories to be told there.
Though really, when it comes down to the question of how do you bring a bunch of people together from different clans, or even in other games where it's different races or different this, different that, didn't really matter. The real question you have to ask that's fundamental to all role-playing games really is, what story do you want to tell? Because the exact nature of your story and what you want to do really lends itself more to one thing or the other, whether it's investigatory or whether it's going to be a lot more combat or courtly. They're preferred methods for each.
That kind of brings up something that was my first reaction to it, but I was convinced otherwise a little bit. But my personal preference as a GM is make no plans until I've seen the character sheets. Like, I'm very much of the philosophy of sort of the original designer of the game, John Wick, which is that players tell you what they want out of the game based on what's in the character sheets. Like, if somebody buys the dependent disadvantage, well, that's going to be a thing. If they have a dependent, that tells me there's someone that needs to be imperiled.
I think that the older editions of the game, second edition in particular, because second edition had a GM guide, the older editions of the game are much more explicit about this, but this is still true in fourth edition. When players make a character, even if you get some really twinked out, Fire Shugenja or...
Why are you looking at me?
Or if you have like a really powerful like Hitabushi, you go into combat, but people are telling you things they want to do or experience when they make that character. Like, my guy is large, so you should maybe make a thing that most of the time he's looking down to whoever he's talking to, and that way it's really kind of special when he has to look up to somebody. Or my character has crafty. Well, sure, you might have all the low skills in the book, but crafty implies quite a lot of things. And maybe there are people out there who know that, you have a certain skill set, and that skill set can be useful. So
makes them a nightmare for certain people like them.
It does. The thing to keep in mind when you're working on a Legend of the Five Rings campaign and you're working with PCs is you want to bring up what they tell you they want. But you don't want to do it usually in the way that they think. For example, I had a PC with Dark Fate. And Dark, we talked about, do you know what your Dark Fate is? What do you think it's going to be? And over the course of the campaign, I had sort of an idea of what it was going to be, but I let kind of his actions and the decisions he made in the campaign affect what that fate was going to be. Eventually, he gets corrupted by the lying darkness. But it could have been any number of things beforehand. And it's important to sort of stay on your toes and adapt to that kind of information.
Another thing that it's also kind of the tavern approach, and this is what we did in the LARP games that I played or whatever. Every game that we went to, it was somebody's court in one of the cities that you've been decided that you're going to be the person to represent, or one of the representatives of said clan at that court. So that's another way that you get multiple clans in one place.
I just remembered something. So HOR very much uses a lot. So courtiers gather favors is a thing they do. It's a thing that the Crane are most famous for. But one interesting genesis of a campaign you could do, and I now actually really want to try. All right, everybody, junior characters. Just so you know, everybody is going to get the blackmail disadvantage, and you get the points even if it would bring you over 10. So write that down. Calculate the points into your expenditures, and tell me what is it that Bayushi Takashi has on you? And that's the beginning of the campaign.
I would also bring up, and this is sort of a side thing to the Emerald Magistrates, you can do a lot of really cool, really crazy stuff with the Jade Magistrates. Jade Magistrates are the Imperial Magistrates who investigate spiritual problems. So you're not going to send an Emerald Magistrate when there's a portal to Toshigoku that opened up, because no matter how honorable your Magistrate may be, he lacks the skills to close that thing. And the longer it's open, the worse it gets. So they call in the Jade Magistrate. So you can have campaigns like Ghostbusters. You could very easily have something like Hellboy. You could mix in a non-human as part of a standard traveling group around a Jade Magistrate, because their duties and their purview are going to be so much broader and weirder than even the Emerald Magistrates.
And here's a question: what about the colonies? I'm not as familiar with the more current storyline, but on most frontiers, even in just any game or even history, in the frontier territories, the normal social structure kind of breaks down a little bit. Is there a lot more mixing in the colonies?
There
and
is.
a great possibility for that sort of thing to go on?
Because there's sort of like just a couple of major cities as opposed to like the large, well-established territories the clans have in Rokugan. In the colonies, people live much closer together. So you're seeing a lot more crossover between the different clans.
It's very much the whole gold rush type of mentality.
So it's very possible that beyond using the sort of easy story hooks of the Ivory Magistrates or the Second City Guard, that, a guy in the apartment next to you enacts some kind of profane ritual and everybody on your floor is kind of in trouble now. There's a massive apartment complex in the Second City. And there's all kinds of crazy things that parties can get up to out there. And the thing I really like about the colonies as a GM is Rokugan and a lot of its threats have really been written out and put out. The darkness is a thing we all know about. We know about bandits. We know about other clans. We know about Oni. We don't know really anything about the Ivory Kingdoms. We don't know how many people are actually dead. We don't know what things they were holding in place. A couple of them have been statted and shown up in the storyline, but a very small number, and they're horrifying. Like a 200-foot-long giant snake monster who eats people.
Per turn.
That was a thing that they had bound, and then the world ended. And
gigantic bone whale.
And there's great things that you could also use as hooks in the colonies, like the heir of Shinsei, the modern day hooded Ronin is in the colonies. He's not in the Empire. And in fact, he grew up in the colony. He grew up in the Ivory Kingdoms, what is now the colonies. And what happens when this weird monk dude with a strange accent starts gathering all these samurai of different clans together?
There might not be some people who like that.
Two more things have just occurred.
Wandering monks, just as a thing. Biggest idea you can do.
Something we haven't addressed so far. The Kolot. The Kolot are a universal problem and/or asset. I don't think I've ever heard of a Kolot game wherein all the PCs are in fact a part of the Kolot conspiracy rather than fighting against it.
I know a group in Oklahoma has run a Kolot game. Minnesota Oklahoma or Missouri. I think the issue with a Kolot campaign is there are different levels of Kolot, and not every player is going to be comfortable with being the guys who know all the things. I think if you're going to do a Kolot campaign, it's really going to run like Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a heist game of some description, and there's going to be one guy who knows way more than the rest of the party.
Well,
and you have to make sure that guy is actually really good at role playing and not letting other people know that he knows more than they do.
I would love to see if somebody could pull off a game where they take every player aside and tell them, now you're going to be Kolot, but you can't let anyone know in or out of character.
Oh, that has to inevitably happen.
We actually in our first campaign we had a blood speaker. We had no idea.
Oh yeah.
I think a campaign of the with the usual suspects plot would be pretty fun too.
There's a call out to it in the card game even. But sorry.
Another thing that definitely comes up, especially when you're trying to start out with a group of players, is you're going to have people who have no idea what the heck this whole Rokugan thing even is. You know, what does honor, glory, and status mean? Why are there these bubbles on my character sheet? What do they do? You know, and so a question that was posted by Derek, I believe, was how do you take this kind of new group, you know, regardless of what idea we may end up going with, but, you know, we're going with people who are maybe used to D&D or are used to World of Darkness or, you know, any other sort of more popular system, and how do you introduce them and make them really care about Rokugan?
I've actually found it. I've had a mixed bag with that one. For some groups have been, or some people in groups, it's been really easy. Like they pick it up really quickly and everything like that. And then there are other players that, you know, they just don't understand it. You know, they've played, you know, games like D&D or Pathfinder like religiously, and they don't really know how to do anything else. And so it's really hard to break them out of that mold. So, I mean, it's been the hardest, I think, for me to explain honor to someone and how it works. Glory is easy, status is easy. I think it's the honor thing that they have the hardest thing wrapping their head around, and for me, the hardest thing to explain to them.
I mean, it's kind of interesting that in the original design of L5R, I've seen articles of John Wick talking about it. The honor system, gaining and losing honor, was specifically implemented to try and help people figure out how to play samurai. Mm-hmm. That you know, it's a carrot and stick for the GM to wield. Like, how much do you care about being a samurai, and making sure the setting reflects that. People will be able to almost instinctively detect if you are an honorless pig dog. I don't like. Yeah, no, I've never actually seen a really good answer to that question, and I've always struggled with it. And sitting here now, it occurs to me, I think the first question to ask is, how much do you know about samurai? Have you ever seen a Kurosawa movie? Does the word Kurosawa, does the phrase Kurosawa movie have any meaning to you? That's generally a good start, I think, to get a base of knowledge.
I think probably one of the, I think the easiest way that I've compared the general samurai class is that your general samurai is equivalent to a paladin in some wavelength.
They're religious zealots.
It kind of,
yeah.
No, the
not
setup,
necessarily religious zealots, but
actually, technically, the entire basis of a samurai. So you're aristocrats, you're ruling martial nobility, but as is the standard feudal tradition, your position in the world, your position in life, is religiously justified. Like the part of the job of the Shigenja is to assure the peasantry that if they work hard and be the best peasants they can be and don't question the samurai, don't question authority, they will, when they die, be allowed to be reborn as samurai. No, like a samurai has every justification for their status, their money, their superior role in society, because they're heaven blessed to do so. A samurai should be convinced that heaven has decreed that they're awesome, and that's why they get to be awesome and better than a peasant.
I know at least one way that I found that was at least easier for me to explain to.
You actually been trying to get a couple of kids into the game, like Catherine and her.
Yeah. When it came to my daughter and my wife, sometimes it was easier to explain to them in terms of historical things. They were really big history buffs, and they liked Japanese history and some of the stories, and a lot of them are into some of the anime and stuff. But more real world application to them, something they had real hands on experience, and something that a lot of people do too is actually martial arts, karate, aikido, definitely any of the Japanese ones, but to some degree at least, a lot of the Korean martial arts as well. They really emphasize honor and spirituality, a oneness of mind and body that they kind of drill into you a bit when you're in the classes and you're actually sparring, the respect that you show people, even though you're trying to punch them in the face, you respect them for that. And when they punch you in the face and throw you on the floor, you get up and you tell them, "Cool, I'm going to see you again.
Let's do that again sometime."
Yeah, and it's respect. It's rigorous routine. It is it's respect of yourself and of certain things and of a proper mode of doing things and behavior and respect of your authority and your master. It's kind of it's a mentality that helps you get into the framework of a character who's been raised in a rigorous society, who's been drilled in a school, and is expected to show deference and respect to people, even though the next day he might try to slit their throat for reasons.
So I think that's a really good point, Benito. But I also think that it's. I oftentimes ask when I'm working with someone who has never played L5R before, but has played something like D&D or has played WoD or something of that nature. I usually start by telling them or asking them, what do you like to play? Do you like to play a fighter? Well, that's probably going to be a crab or a lion bushi of some description. What type of fighter do you like to play? What kind of character do you like to play? Because you can make a whole lot of character concepts fit into Rokugan. It's one of the reasons it's lasted 19 years as of this year and 20 as of next year.
The characters, mind you, we were talking about setting.
But they're inextricably linked, right?
Yeah.
The people you're sitting at the table with are, in my opinion, fundamentally more important than the setting, but they are relying on you to provide, as the GM, the context for their actions. So when you do that, when you say, okay, you killed this guy, he had a really cool sword, do you pick it up? It's covered in his blood. And you might be, as a player, going, man, that sword could shoot lightning bolts. This is awesome. And you reach down for it. And a lot of my sort of inclination is, you're playing in a world where, especially at the start, the characters will know more than the players. Mm-hmm. So I say, before you pick up that sword, go ahead and roll me etiquette. You don't have etiquette? Roll me awareness. And then, and it's at some really basic TN. And then you don't tell them no. You tell them, that if you pick this up, it's considered unclean. You might be losing some honor for it.
I'm kind of hesitant to do that because, especially if it's a new player, they won't know the significance of having etiquette. It like that can get I've actually seen, I have observed that style of play done, and it often causes a lot of frustration for new players. I think it's way better to just sort of the best way I've seen to introduce the setting is just sort of string them down the rabbit hole, like broad strokes. The bigger, more colorful, really interesting stuff. I think the best way to introduce a person to the setting is basically the clans. Take out the book and say it's a samurai setting. Everybody's united under a single emperor samurai, but each of the clans is effectively distinct as its own nation with certain expectations, responsibilities, and character traits. And let me tell you about these cool clans. And so the example you were giving, I don't think it's good to give etiquette roles for that kind of information. I think it's a sort of I think it's more appropriate to do a cinematic show, not tell kind of thing. Every time a player runs into a situation, etiquette roles are to not fumble in court, I think, or for more advanced play, for really dodgy, questionable situations. Just about everybody would know culturally, would be culturally acclimatized to the fact that blood is filthy. So they see the sword and you explain, all right, that's a sweet sword, but here's this thing about the setting. Just tell them straight out that that's the thing. And let them make the decision right then and there. The point of the carrot and stick of honor is to let the full disclosure. This is the situation. Now, you as a player, do you care if your samurai is super honorable? Do you want to uphold the most paladin-y virtues, or are you going to be kind of a scoundrel? So sort of Mass Effect Paragon Renegade. is the thing. And so I think withholding information like that is pointless. There's no good thing that could come from withholding that information. It just makes them resent you when they flub the role, and now they're disgraceful when they wanted to be a paragon, when they came into the game planning to be, a righteous dude.
Sure, but let's say, okay, well, I pick it up anyway, or I pick it up, I lose honor, and then they find out why they lost honor. Some players, yeah, you're right, they're going to be angry. And some are going to be like, well, what happens if I return the sword to the guys who should own it? Well, now that sounds like a quest idea to me. You want to find the guys who owned this sword that shoots lightning bolts and give it back to them to restore your lost honor for having picked it up. Okay, we can do that. But I also think, in terms of the setting, you also need to be really clear that when it comes to like the supernatural stuff, D&D is kind of like, the magic is very mundane. Everybody you can find +2 armor hanging out in a shop somewhere. You can find a sword that turns you invisible and destroys dragons when you think about it really hard. Like, just laying about in some dude's house, right?
It's the invisible sort of dragon, psychic dragon vein.
The L5R is not the case. L5R is a lot more, especially in the day-to-day lives of most samurai, much more mundane. Shugenja aren't always casting Earth Becomes Sky and shooting boulders at some Oni's face. Most of the time, like, for example, this is actually a thing they talk about in, I think, Secrets of the Dragon. Most dragon, like Earth Shugenja, spend their time making arable cropland, so the dragon don't have to import all of their food. And you know what? Talking to a farmland's worth of Earth Kami takes a while. and the impact is not going to be, I earthquake this army into oblivion. It's going to be, okay, well, you made your commune rules the Earth Kami for the past month, and now they can till the mountainside that they live on.
Actually, come to think of it, that brings back to mind why. Probably, yeah, no. I feel that we've come to an answer in that the best way to introduce people to the setting is to introduce people to the clans, because the clans are all specifically designed to appeal to certain archetypes of gamer. Listening to a coherent and well pitched description of the clans will inevitably get people drawn in, and each of the clans' specialized duties will help acclimatize them to parts of the setting. Here's the crab. Explaining the crab involves explaining the wall.
That's actually a good point. Like, how do you... Let's run through the clans. Let's say you're talking to a new player. How do you sell someone on the clan? Like, so let's start with the crab, for example.
To the far south of Rokugan, there is a pit straight to hell, and from that pit, evil itself emerges. The only thing between the rest of the empire and that pit to hell is the crab, and their miracle wall, a gigantic wall that is the singular last fortification between the glorious empire of Rokugan and hell itself and evil. And the crab are, for this reason, don't put so much faith into etiquette or standard honor because they're too busy. They're too desperate and they're too practical. Crab-bushi are known for being nigh on to indestructible because they have to face the legions of hell every day. If you want a scarred, brutal veteran, you want a crab. Crab take no sass.
So now say that in one sentence.
You can reduce it down to an elevator pitch, but like for the purposes of casual conversation, introducing somebody to a game, I think that's short enough. I can spend some time to break that down into a 3-sentence elevator pitch.
How would you do it, Peter? If it's the crab and not your beloved scorpion.
Let's see. The crab in one sentence.
Not necessarily one sentence. You're talking to a guy who doesn't know what...
One sentence is not anywhere near sufficient. That's a crazy request to make.
Well, I say like one sentence because that's usually how you have to sell an entire like movie pitch.
And no, that's called an elevator pitch, and that's a paragraph long. Or one sentence. I can't imagine a scenario where I'd be that in that big a hurry, how about you look at some deck boxes throughout, like the synopsis on the back of a given clan starter.
That's actually a really good point, Dave. Any GM should be familiar or should familiarize themselves with Oracle of the Void. It's the Legend of the Five Rings card database, and you can just go in there and find cool images of things happening and stuff being done and cool samurai. And you can say, okay, well, I want to play a Nutaku. What does Nutaku look like? What does it mean that I have this giant, war horse? Well, boom, here you go. Here's some images for context. Oh, I want to be this, crab guy. What does he look like? I think there's a very big reason in the 4th Ed core. You see these giant, cool splash images next to each clan with the descriptions. And the crab guy looks like dour and determined, and it's raining and it's dark, and you can tell he's just having the worst day.
And this is a Tuesday.
The crane art is serene and beautiful, but with just a hint of force. The dragon art is Mirumoto from Dawn of the Empire, and its focus and it's intense. And every clan kind of has those images, and they really do a lot to help sell a prospective player on who and what these people are. And if you just bring up some cards, you can go, okay, you wanna see what a Moto looks like? Here's Moto Gaharis. Look at how crazy this dude is. He doesn't even wear a shirt. He has no shirts to wear.
But for simplification, let's go through a list of clans and show what it reveals about the setting to describe anyone. So Crab, you're going to wind up talking about the wall and a little bit about the Shadowlands. Crane, Rohugani courts. Favors and
Crane is culture.
Yeah.
When I describe the Crane, I usually tell them, okay, they're like, what are the Crane? The Crane invented art. The Crane invented civilization. those things we do, like writing and having laws? The Crane invented those. It's them.
Okay, so the Crane, finer things of culture. Scorpion, their dark opposite. Norokugani, nightlife and the insidious part of courts.
I usually explain the Scorpion in that if you want to play a rogue, you're playing Scorpion.
Yeah, more or less. Another really good thing that I've seen. I know they had it in 3rd Ed, they had it in 4th Ed. I don't remember if they had it in the first 2 editions or whatever. But it has a little blurb in each of the clans about how they see each other clan. And I think reading all of those for each clan gives you
But you can't really ask a new player to do that, especially at the start of a campaign.
But no, the thing is though those little blurbs are all like 1 sentence each.
Well,
sure, but they're very heavily informed by a given clan's perspective.
Well,
having them read theirs for their clan on the others just gives them a little like, all right, nothing else other than your clan's general perspective. Here you go.
Yeah, that's what I was.
And then it'll let them learn through the game.
Yeah.
I would also encourage anyone running a table for new players. The roll and keep system is for a guy like me who's run way too much L5R, really, at the end of the day, really easy. If you tell me what you want to do, I can come up with a TN for it in about a second. But for new players, you want to let them experiment. And this is a thing that I've seen a lot of new players really not handle well is raises. Raises are a system that's...
It took me a little while to get the point of raises and everything like that when I started playing.
I make raises subject to the... So in D&D, if you want to do something cool, generally speaking, no and screw you for asking.
Or just this entirely almost impossible DC that you have to hit.
Yeah, like, okay, you want to swim from a chandelier and cut it off and have it land on the orc. Okay, well, you need an acrobatics check, then another, dex check to make sure you don't fall off the chandelier and hurt yourself, then an attack roll on the chain. You've got to get through its freaking HP in a hit, and then you've got to guide it down, and then you've got to make sure you're taking fall damage, and it's like a 400-step process.
Or you could just make them have an acrobatics check and be done with it.
But most GMs don't do that, because then they'll be like, then the wizard's like, why did I waste all my time, casting these other spells when he can just run up there and knock a chandelier onto some dude? Because wizards are incredibly, or in my opinion, invariably the worst players. They are. Oh,
I'm gonna feel loved.
There are exceptions.
There are, and I'm not saying you can't have good wizard players at a table, but invariably the people who are the least fun to be at the table with are wizards.
Barbarians are fun.
Yeah.
Barbarians are fun. Bards are fun. Rogues are fun. Usually, rogues are either fun or awful.
We're massively off.
Anyway,
off track. So
the thing with raises, and being really specific here, is you need to make sure that your players understand that, do you want to do something cool? No, you don't need to roll more times. You need to say, I'm going to raise to do this thing. I want to, in my first blood duel, I'm going to call raises to his TN to knock his OB off and make his pants fall down. Perfectly doable. Mm-hmm. Might not end well, but perfectly doable. And that's what raises are for. Raises are for the rule of cool. And you definitely want to make sure that the players at your table know that.
I have... I'm not sure we would really want to go too deep into mechanical discussion and/or complaints, but I've had some problems with the raising system, because it's not super clear on what raises do, and it can kind of be a problem in normal, non-contested roles, especially. I want to jump over the thing. Are there any raises... is there any reason to make the raises? I explained a thing I want to do to the GM. All the things I want to do are inherent in the TN. There's no particular reason to make raises beyond that.
Well, it's one of those things, okay, it's like, I want to vault over this, 3-foot wall. Okay, you make an athletics roll that's for a 3-foot wall, like a TN of 5, normally. It's like, oh, that's all I want to do. But while I'm doing this, I want to vault off at one hand, do a triple corkscrew backflip, and then kill the thing on the other side.
Well, I mean, that's raises to claim to be more stylistic. And again, I want to triple backflip over this wall. Then the GM's not going to say TN5, TN30. No raises are involved there. It's inherent in the difficulty of the thing. But on top of that, other things, most GMs are absolutely not willing to be creative or lenient in roles for normal things like attack. Let's say I have Void 3 or 4. I can make 3 to 4 raises, therefore. Let's for the sake of this example say Void 4. I can make 4 raises. I want to do something creative with my attack. I want to do something neat. Can I perhaps, since we're kind of outnumbered here, I want to try and create some sort of tactical advantage. I want to scare the hell out of these dudes. I want to make the attack look exceptionally brutal. Or, I'm going to use 2 raises to take the dude down, and another raise to, if not actually damage him, take more swings to do the damage of one attack. And so often, I'll make the raises, and the GM can't even fathom how to implement that mechanically, so he'll just factor off in the back of my... I guess they're a little bit more scared. Does that mean that some of them are going to flee? Well, no, it's not on the docket and everything. I want to give other players a chance to do more things in this fight before it wraps up. So, well, and I've tried to propose so the interesting thing of the probably in most cases the only thing you will ever do with raises are raise for damage. And so the way that works is...
No, there
are some maneuvers.
There's a lot of maneuvers.
And outside of spellcasting. There's a handful of maneuvers, and then there's raising for damage.
There's a lot of maneuvers you use that aren't damage.
Mm-hmm.
Disarm, knockdown. Knockdown's pivotal to the Yoritomo school.
All right.
Called shots is another great example.
Yeah,
Disarm.
Any
If you're insane, extra attack.
When's the last time you saw somebody try and disarm?
I took someone's eye out. That was hilarious.
All right.
So I mean, there are other things, and it is dependent on the GM in that aspect of how they want to do it. Because like I know I've played in quite a few games and everything like that where I do like, okay, I want to do a called shot, to this guy's like forearm to make his arm unusable and everything like that.
Well, again,
I mean, it's like, okay, I want to do a called shot to an arm to do this, and
that brings up the exact same problem. That actually brings up like I've also done that. I've made raises to make an attack more terrifying, to try and demoralize the enemy. GMs actually really hate it when you make called shots to limbs. They really despise it. Pretty much as a rule, like in Heroes of Rokugan, as my wacky Shinjo archer, I have a preposterous, arrows pool. I have a preposterous bow with so I am preposterously skilled archer. So I make try and do interesting things with my arrows. And until Book of Air came out, none of it ever mattered. I shoot him in the leg to try and keep him from running. All right, you shoot him in the leg. That's where the damage is. Does he keep running? Yes. Against all odds, he's able to power through the pain and keep going. Then Book of Air came out and said, 3 raises and you can pin someone to a thing. They're pinned to the thing until they take a simple action to pull it out, and they take 1k1 for pulling it out. Not until it was justified by text did making a called shot really mean anything.
Well, you're also judging it by the standards of Heroes of Rokugan, and sometimes in modules like what you want to do will end a mod immediately, and your tendency as a player is to be the special snowflake. And I don't mean that as a derogatory term. I mean that like there are special snowflake players who really want the spotlight all of the time, and as a GM you have to do things to make sure that people who aren't going to be explicit about saying I want to do something too get to do things. And oftentimes that means the special snowflake player gets really frustrated. And in home games, it's a lot easier to be more lenient. Like, okay, you pin that guy's knee to the thing, he can't get out, and then his buddy bursts out from the door next to you and goes crazy. But in HOR, like there's an adventure where there's an assassin who you see and there's a chase and he eventually gets away. Well, if you shoot him in the leg, like, okay, but if this chase is over now, the mod is done and nobody gets XP. So do I say, okay, well, you won, and in winning, screwed the party out of 2 XP, glory, and honor, and anything else?
That's a fair example, but
so I mean,
in so many of the things where this has frustrated me, it's just a combat. It's a regular combat, but
but that's a GM thing and not a setting thing.
Well, it's sort of an issue with the rules as written, where it doesn't really give you a lot of frame of reference for, like, GMs aren't given any tools for how to respond to uses of raises. It has this raise mechanic, but it largely doesn't do anything. Like most GMs aren't going to, like, are to be fair, like, it doesn't necessarily reflect poorly on the GM. Sometimes people are just wary of game-breaking things. They don't know the consequences of allowing a thing.
True, but that's a GM thing, and it's something to do with systems that are designed to be more open and more freeform and allow GMs more latitude to make their own decisions and to build the game and the setting the way they kind of want it and have it respond the way they want it. But some GMs just aren't quite as comfortable with that level of freedom in the game, and the fact that it's not defined in some chart somewhere makes them go, I don't know if I should do this, and then they don't. And that's a GM thing, and it's not quite an issue with the setting. It's just when an RPG is more open and allows for more options, if those options aren't defined and they're relying on the GM to do it, then it's the GM.
it is a thing where I think a GM guide would have been very handy for this game. The Book of the Void, which is the last part of the core book, does a solid job of trying, but I think that there's not really a good handbook for GMs, and there hasn't, like the last time one was printed was 2000. So it's been almost 15 years since we really had a book that kind of laid things out for the GM. And I'll tell you, if you're going to run this game, buy it on DriveThru RPG or find it in like a half price book somewhere, but get the Second Ed GM guide, because it will shed so much light on so many things. But there's another question from the Facebook thread that I didn't want to bring up. This is the big one. This is a really big question. How do you guys, handle or would like to see handled the political system? Courtiers and courts and daimyos and champions and Rokugan is a very complex society, and there are many layers. You have the relationship between Edda and peasants and samurai. You have the relationships between normal samurai and kuge and the nobility. The imperial families and their great clans. There's a whole lot of like overlapping circles here, and it's definitely overwhelming for GMs and a lot of the time for players to be thrust into that particular part of the world.
Make them all peasants. Done.
I really don't think there's too easy of a way to do it. I mean, that's really the unfortunate answer. It's a complicated system. There's lots of different levels, there's lots of things, and it's a matter of sitting down, I think, and talking with your players about the world at large and exactly how it works, and especially what kind of, if you know at least a part of where your campaign's going to go, talking with people about the stations and their responsibilities and their duties and what they are and what they do. You talk to people about clan magistrates, emerald magistrates, and this lord and that lord and the headmans of village. Half the times, exactly what their responsibilities are, what their duties are, I have no idea. Someone told me about a village headman. I assumed that they're responsible for overseeing the peasants. Exactly what all that might entail? Not quite sure. Wait, you mean there's a separate guy that handles the taxes? Oh, I thought I was supposed to talk to this guy. But, that's sort of the thing. It's sitting down and talking. There's so much information and such a complex thing. You really have to start taking it in little bites and chunks and kind of going at it piece by piece. And eventually you'll start to see how the greater picture goes out. It really is kind of hierarchical and it kind of feeds off of itself. So once you start getting a good feeling of it, you'll understand, and the players will understand how the whole thing starts working together. But you got to start somewhere and then just start building and building from there. And a good discussion ahead of the time might be a good way to start.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Nito was saying, it's due to the fact that the political system in this is so robust. A lot of new players, especially that I've seen, have just been completely overwhelmed with that. And so what I try to do with them, at least, is just try to narrow it down. It's like, okay, look, this is what your job is. This is what you need to concentrate on right now. Don't worry about what this guy's doing or this guy's doing over here unless they directly talk to you. But this, as your character, this is what your job is, so worry about that.
If we get this up before Gencon, if you're curious about seeing how this works in an actual game, go to the Saturday morning political interactive for Heroes of Rokugan. That's a pretty hands-on way to understand real quick how status and honor and glory dictate things in a Rokugan court.
Yep. Done a few political interactives in HOR so far, and
you've led the Scorpion a couple times, is my understanding.
Only once. And even then, I didn't really realize that I was the one in charge. And people kept coming to me for stuff. I'm all like, yeah, okay, go do do that. And then I realized that the person who was higher status than me was actually an NPC. And I was like, oh, that's why they're all coming to me. Gotcha. All right, then. So that was fun.
If you're Scorpion, they should never know that you are the one in charge.
It's really easy to tell who the lead Scorpion is. It's really hard to get access to them to do things.
So, I'm not. I haven't been convinced that the mechanics of L5R really suit a court-centric game. Mainly because social roles so often boil down to mind control. We throw our pools at each other. Whoever has the higher number wins the conversation.
And you're right. And you're right at that point. And that's kind of one of those things where when it comes to the courtly game, at least, if you're doing stuff between players, it more comes down to your role play, and that also has another inherent problem in it as well, that
the players themselves are stubborn gits and don't want anything other than their own way.
No, not just that, but like
that's specifically in some LARPs, though.
But like I will actually talk about, like, again, the LARP game that I was a part of and everything like that, where people would, be in these court settings and everything like that, and be really like, well versed in everything, and be able to like talk circles around you, but their character sheet doesn't reflect this at all. Like they have like a courtier skill of 1 and everything like that, but they're like, doing stuff like they have a courtier skill of like 5+ and everything like that. So it is really hard to do a court setting and accurately reflect what your character's capabilities actually are.
I think you are all wrong.
Well, I mean, well, you can explain that, because I was about to offer some suggestions on how you could potentially run or set up a court-centric L5R game. But
who would like to tell me where in the rules it says if I win opposed courting manipulation, you do what I say?
Oh no, it doesn't anywhere.
Who would like to tell me where it says that winning one etiquette or sincerity or whatever role means that you totally have someone on your side?
It doesn't anywhere, and
So
that was the basis of my point, actually.
Here's first off, you're going to run a courtly game. Understand that politics are politics and have remained relatively unchanged. Like, at the end of the day, people are people, and especially in a court, people are people. I think if you really want to, like, I'm a big Aaron Sorkin fan, and I think like The West Wing is actually a really good way to handle something like a court game, because when you watch a lot of that series, you're seeing kind of like the guys who would be the PCs, not the guy in charge, not the other guys in charge, but the guys who kind of help the guys in charge make decisions, and therefore have to meet with a ton of people and do a lot of really weird, boneheaded things. And you can see that a lot in Rokugan, Okay, well, you can't speak to the general of the Crane armies, but we've got this colonel who happens to be attending court. And he's the guy to talk to. Now, this colonel may not know what even is happening here. He may have just arrived the other day, but he's the guy to talk to for anybody who wants to talk to the Crane. And if you're going to run a social game, focus not on, I think, the strict mechanics, because the mechanics will happen, and I think a skilled GM can make rolls happen when rolls happen. But what you want to focus on in court is role playing, and you want to make sure that the players feel like they're accomplishing things or doing things. And I think that the social system as it exists is a really great way. One of the things I like doing in L5R is taking players out of their comfort zones. If you make a combat twink, I'm going to send you to a court where the second you screw up, guys who are way scarier than you in combat stab you to death, because you can't roll initiative to solve this problem. You have to come up with something else. If you make a crazy great courtier, you're going to have your time in court, and then your lord might just have to send you on a dangerous expedition into the reaches of the Shinmin Forest to find something. And you know what? You grin and bear it. Because though you have Courtier 5 and Kenjutsu 0, your lord told you to do it, and by God, that means you do it. And court represents... Court in this larger sense of a setting outside of the PCs, which is something L5R does that very few other games do. Rokugan exists regardless, or maybe independently of the PCs. The strictures and mores of the setting predate them and will go on long after they're all, feeding the worms. So the thing to realize with social combat is your players are going to not know what to do. They're going to not know who to talk to. They're going to not know who's important, and that is part of the game. That's 100% part of it. Think about, any kind of real police procedural like the old school Law and Orders. Half of it was finding the guy you needed to talk to. And Rokugani courts are in fact set up such that clans don't want you to find the guy you need to talk to a lot of the time, because they don't know what your game is about. That whole circle is about finding out if you're the guy they want to talk to. And I think it's also important because courts reinforce the idea that regardless of how sweet you are, you might be a rank 5 Akodo Bushi, storied general of a dozen battles, slayer of God knows what, but at court, you're with the lion. And you might have experienced 100 days in the battlefield, but that rank 3 Akoma Courtier probably knows more about how to not die here than you do.
One of the ways that I've seen a court game implement the mechanics and everything like that is you do all your talking, you state your case and everything like that, and your courtier role is basically how well you actually convinced the said person, and depending on how well you role played it out and everything like that, you can get like your free raises on it and everything like that. And I've seen that. I've mainly seen them do that with the Five Rings Online game when they do all their major courtly things. They do all their stuff. They present their case and everything like that. They make all their points. The more points that they make and everything like that, the more convincing that they are in their actual argument, the more free raises that they get on their actual roll. And then they do their actual roll, and then they add that up to adding it to their actual convincingness of their argument.
I think for if you're trying to do a court campaign and not just court as a thing that happens in a broader campaign, I think that it works largely as a PvP campaign. And the trick really is, how do you make it PvP without aggravating everybody? So one of the ideas I had a while back, I have yet to actually sit down and play this, was let's say you sit down at a table, there are 5 PCs, everybody makes, you tell everybody, whatever guy you make, he's going to be rank 3 and he'll have some high amount of status, and he's the delegate lead of the delegation to court. So you make that guy. And then however many other players are in the game, so let's say, you're making a Scorpion Benito, and we have the rest of us sitting at the table, you make 3 Scorpion NPCs. And those are played by the other members of the court. So instead of just playing as, your character all the time, you're going to have these other delegations walking around and interacting with, and everybody is kind of fighting everybody else, but at the same time, success will mean working against yourself. It's incredibly meta. I'm not sure if it works. But
I'd like to
really
my counter proposal, and I think that a good court game, you could actually get a lot of inspiration just looking at the Crane clan. Each clan is clearly designed to be composed of a party. The families of a clan compose a party of PCs, like with all the associated roles. generally. So, what does a party of Crane look like? You have a duelist, you have the on-the-ground courtier, the talker, you have the Asahina, who's there to basically mill out favors, and then you have the Daidoji for if things get raucous. So basically, I think an ideal court game would be largely freeform. I don't think you could structure it like anything like a dungeon crawl. Basically, you have a goal. Perhaps we go back to the collected blackmail or collected favors thing. You've all been sent to this court to accomplish a thing. You all have this collective political goal. Make sure that this tract of land gets in the hand of this clan, or make sure that this daimyo is disgraced currently, is about to be stripped of all titles. Figure out how to keep that from happening. And you'll be very surprised by the sort of interesting plots and things that come out of the wacky shenanigans the PCs come up with to fix this problem. So basically just, here's a scenario, here's a locale, and here's the opposite. Here's some colorful residents of the locale. And put down quick elevator pitches of the residents of the locale, like all the major figures, the local daimyo, the local crime lord, the guy who's actually running everything for the slacking off daimyo. So the daimyo might be a red herring. The person who holds all the power in that court is his wife, or something along those lines, or actually maybe even the Haman head of the house servants might have might do most of the paperwork at the end of the day. So it's sort of an investigation, and you can actually solve this problem from any number of fronts and just see what the PCs do.
And that's usually kind of the approach in at least court adventures and games and everything like that, is that they should be free form, more or less. Everybody has a general objective, and however you get to that objective is up to the player itself.
Something else that's kind of important for court things, I think, and in other games it's kind of the same way, especially with some of the White Wolf Vampire. I know you've seen that. People are sent to court for a reason. They're not there just to be there. They're not there just to hang out. They're not there for the pie. They're there because their lord sent them there to do something. Now, what is that?
Togashi might be there for the pie.
Togashi notwithstanding, their navel is very important, and they must gaze at this wherever it suits them. This is a marvelous thing, and it always must be done. However,
the pie gets volunteers. That's what the pie gets.
Correct. Other people, however, they want things. Exactly what that is, God only knows. And the PCs themselves, they might not, know about this thing. They might not be there for the thing. Somebody in the party, maybe an NPC, but a lot of times it's the players, and the best time is when it is the players. They're sent for the thing, and in the setting, it's important to remember that when your lord sends you to a court to do a thing, you are empowered to make any decisions, sometimes within certain reasons, but those are defined, or if they're open, they're just flat out open. And you've been empowered to make negotiations on behalf of your clan, and they're binding. It is a terrifying prospect to say, all right, I want you to do this. Whatever deal you make, we're going to stand by. You might have to kill yourself based on this deal if you screw it up. But we'll abide by it because we're honorable people. Don't screw up. And that... And letting players know that, hey, you have a job, this is the job, how you do it, these are your limits, or if there's no limits, there's no limits. And making sure that they know, hey, you're not just here just to talk to people and find out who knows what. No, you're here to do something, and what you do will have lots of ramifications. It's the burden and the knowledge that what they do can possibly do all manner of things.
As a corollary to that, I think one of the most important things you can say about a court game, either playing it or running it, is that everyone wants something, and
Correct.
Everyone has a price. That price usually in Rokugan is not in money, is not koku. Everybody wants something, and everybody has a price.
And that is the other part of running a good court game. The PCs want something. but everyone else wants something too. And establishing that sort of background driving force behind your other NPCs and other stuff like that. What are all the different background stories and machinations and plot intrigues?
It doesn't have to be that complex. It could be as simple as
It could be simple, but
the surface.
But
Here's
the
what they
point
want.
is to define that ahead of time, so that when PCs start investigating, or they're talking to random NPCs, or you decide to pull one out of the blue because hey, they've gone a different way, and I need this to fill this hole, you have the general outline of the web of intrigue plotted, so that when they wander in, you can giggle and watch where the little flies dangle. But if you have absolutely no clue and you're just pulling stuff out of random orifices, it can get really murky really fast. And part of being a good court game is when it's all said and done, the players go back and look back at everything and go, oh, that's what was going on. Well, holy shit.
Well, I also want to say the books you should really get. Sorry, guys. If you're interested in the course, are Emerald Empire and Sword and Fan. A lot of information in those books will really help make it all make sense. The court is the hardest thing to run in this game. Regardless of how you do it, it's a real test of a GM to be able to adapt to changing circumstances, to let the players really have impact and change how things go. And I think that it's definitely not something you should start out with.
Court is hard.
Even if you have, let's say, a cabal of World of Darkness players who are used to social combat and kind of how that works and what it means, L5R social combat is the easiest way to kill characters in the game, because they will kill themselves and not even know how.
They'll just wake up one day with a letter on their desk saying that you're scheduled for seppuku today.
Yeah, there's all kinds of
That has happened.
there's all kinds of exciting ways to die in a court. Like what Manju said, like you may literally be the most powerful bushi ever. You're rank 7 Matsu. No one can challenge, no one person, no 5 people can challenge you physically. But if you roll initiative in the middle of a court, that is the end of your career as a samurai.
Yeah, but I really wanted to play a monk anyways.
And I think that's a great note to wrap this episode up on. I wanted to thank Benito and Dave for joining us on today's episode. I wanted to thank you guys for listening and for interacting with us on Facebook. You can find I'll be around on the L5R group. And
if everybody's going to Gencon, you will also be able to see Manji there, as well as some...
I will be very easy to spot on Saturday. I will have a giant mantis vest and a mantis headband and some cool sideburns. It'll be good.
Rockin' the 70s.
The first year I did at Gencon, I had sideburns like down to here. And I literally hadn't shaved them for, I think, 5 months.
Wow.
But beware, if you show up at Gen Con and want to go into a dick measuring contest with Mifune, he's going to pull out the yardstick and say, this is how we roll.
Well, so here's because I can't not brag about this because this school is so silly. The Yoritomo Courtier School is so horrendously broken. When you bust it down, they only have one trick. They have a single trick. The trick is circumvented fairly easily, but if you let them use it, my intimidation control roll by Gen Con will be 10 without a void point. 10k 5 plus 30. I will be at a point where it'll just be like, you tell me what you roll, let me know how much you get above 30.
All right, so...
Mantis courtiers, don't let them happen. That's all I'm saying. Thanks, guys. We will see you next time. And, oots!
Banzai!